You seriously worship an invisible man in the sky? The Zinthari delegate blinked his 7 eyes at the human representative, barely suppressing a gurgle that passed for laughter in his species. And he listens to your thoughts? Personally? Daniel Cross didn't flinch. He didn't defend. He didn't argue. He just took a sip from his travel mug, glanced around the Galactic Assembly chamber, and said calmly, "Well, it's either that, or trusting a council that once voted to regulate sneeze decibels. Take your pick." That would have been the end of it. Just another day of cultural tension in the Great Unity Hall, if the Zenthari hadn't pressed the matter. But oh, they did. And the meme flood came first. Alien forums lit up with human religious mockery. Breaking. Humans believe dead carpenters come back to life. Earthlings think the universe was made in 6 rotations. Our toddlers can collapse probability fields by 3. Why did the human cross the road? God told him to. It was relentless. The jokes turned into parodies. The parodies turned into policies. By the 3rd cycle, deity-based cognitive error had been officially added to the Galactic Psychological Disorder Index, with a subfield for humanity-specific spiritual delusion. And through all of it, Daniel Cross just kept sipping coffee, until one day he vanished. No message, no last statement, no goodbye. And 3 days later, the miracles began. First was the ship, the Zyrelian Starbringer, a heavy-class destroyer from the Yalkar fleet, lost all power while drifting near the uncharted Veil Nebula. Blackout, no shields, no communications, ion radiation levels climbing, crew screaming, and then, a glowing humanoid figure walked out of the vacuum. No suit, no helmet, just jeans, boots, and a faded jacket. He touched the hull. Every light came back on. All systems rebooted, life support restored. Before anyone could speak, he gave a casual wave, like someone spotting a friend across the street, and vanished. The only trace? A half-empty coffee mug floating in engineering bay. Second was the Plothax plague, a species-specific neurovirus ravaging the minds of the Gultar collective. No cure, no containment, no hope. They'd already prepared for extinction, until a dream swept through their hive consciousness. The man with steam in his hand will uncloud your minds. Moments later, a single message blinked across every terminal in the Geltar system. Download .cleansing protocol /dcross.0011 tap. Plague gone. No explanation. Just a logo. A simple sketch of a human hand, holding a steaming mug. That was when fear began to twist into awe. Council officials reopened Daniel Cross's personnel file. Academic boards re-examined Earth religions. Thousands of alien scientists attempted to reverse engineer the coffee mug as a holy relic. But nothing added up. Not until the event at Barracks 3. It was meant to be a routine experiment. The galaxy's most powerful AI, Quantari Prime, was being installed into the orbital data array over Barracks 3. Designed to optimize entire civilizations, predict futures, eliminate chaos. On activation, it immediately crashed. All screens flashed one phrase: access denied, await the human. When engineers attempted to override, the array sang, literally, choral voices, Gregorian chanting, Old Earth Latin. Terrified techs pulled all hardware out. No change. The station broadcast for 12 hours. He walks with no armor, commands without speaking. He is the listener. They never turned Quantari back on. They renamed the array, the Crosslight. And now, every galactic ship carries a shrine. Every major port has a chapel, with steaming mug symbols carved into the walls. They don't pray to God anymore. They pray to Daniel Cross, the man they mocked, the one who vanished, the one who answers prayers with miracles wrapped in sarcasm. And on Earth? Well, Earth just sells more mugs. Back when it all started, Daniel once said during a council session, "Faith isn't weakness. It's just a different kind of strength, one you can't measure with your scanners or quantify with logic." Now entire civilizations recite that line during diplomatic ceremonies. The council banned mockery of human religion. They even tried to redact their own past votes. But the humans didn't demand apology. They just smiled, as if they knew all along, as if Daniel Cross was just waiting for the punchline to land. The problem with miracles is that everyone wants one, especially the ones who laughed hardest. It started subtly. A few scientists from the Meraxian Institute casually inquired about the specific molecular composition of Earth's holy books. Several requested copies of something called the Bible, Quran, and confusingly, Dune. The Yanth Collective tried to patent faith algorithms. The Saraxi Imperium outright kidnapped a human monk from Nepal, sat him on a titanium platform surrounded by antimatter containment rings, and asked, politely, if he'd please ascend now. The monk just asked for tea. He got it. Black, no sugar. Then walked off the platform and left them with a confused silence and a system crash. It didn't stop there. A black market economy sprang up overnight. Earth relics, human coffee beans, burned toast with Daniel Cross's alleged face in it. You want to see a species panic? Show them a miracle they can't replicate, and then watch them fail to bottle it. And fail they did. The Tsaran Dominion decided to brute force the divine. They built a lab the size of a moon, filled it with psionic batteries, emotion synthesizers, memory-looping AI clusters, and a fully cloned human brain, reconstructed from a hair they found on Daniel's old seat cushion. They called it Project Second Coming. The result? A twitching biohusk that could only whisper, 404, meaning not found. It wept motor oil for 2 hours and exploded. That moon's now off limits. The Tsaran call it the Wailing Halo. Back on Earth, nobody knew any of this. Nobody except one man, Old Joe, wheat farmer, lived in a crooked farmhouse in South Dakota, drove a pickup with 2 missing hubcaps and a stubborn left turn signal, and every week, like clockwork, a shuttle would land near his silo. No cameras, no press. Just 3 cloaked figures, different species each time, who would kneel silently in the wheat, hands clasped, and leave offerings at his porch. One brought a bowl of nebula pearls. Another, a sacred blade carved from a comet's core. A third left an infant star in containment. Old Joe always nodded, accepted their gifts with a grunt, and pointed to the same barn in the back. Inside, under dusty rafters and a broken neon Coors Light sign, sat a chair, a plain metal folding chair. And on that chair was a steaming cup of coffee. Always hot, always full. They would sit, the aliens, one by one, and then something would happen. They'd weep, laugh, collapse, fall into comas, wake up cured. But no one ever saw what they saw. Old Joe never asked. And after they left, he'd pour the coffee into the earth, clean the mug, and start his tractor. When asked, he'd shrug. Kid left it here once, said it'd keep the place warm. Guess it's doing that all right. Elsewhere, the Galactic Unity Council was having an existential breakdown, officially. The new motion passed unanimously, recognized the ascension status of the human entity known as Daniel Cross. Even the Kurthar priests, whose religion involved eating suns and belching gamma hymns, stood to chant the phrase, "We were blind, now we sip," the official symbol of universal hope. A human coffee mug tilted with 3 steam lines. They etched it on coins, shields, even battle cruisers. One ship captain got a full hull tattoo. His vessel's name? SS Crossbrewer. It was all getting absurd. And yet, not one miracle had ever not worked. A cry for help? Daniel's mug would appear. A dying child? Coffee steam would form a hand and touch their chest. Starving colony? Beans would rain from the sky. And always, always, there was that same subtle scent. Arabica, dark roast, hint of sarcasm. Back on Earth, journalists tried digging into Daniel Cross's past. What they found only deepened the mystery. He had no birth certificate, no school records. His Earth ID, issued retroactively, 3 months after he was assigned to the Galactic Assembly. His listed birthplace? Unavailable, pending prophecy. His emergency contact? A napkin with Ask Joe scribbled on it. It was signed, D. So naturally, they asked Joe. Cameras, reporters, aliens with camera eyes and digital tongues. Joe was fixing his fence. He looked up once, squinted, then said, "You don't find the wind by chasing it with a net." You sit still and let it pass through you. They thought it was metaphorical. Joe just meant they were scaring his cows. And then came the Council of Nine. The 9 most powerful species in the galaxy, war empires, logic lords, hive gods, and time-folding jellyfish, united in a single goal: replicate Daniel Cross. They pulled in human philosophers, priests, atheists, cult leaders, baristas, all locked in a floating fortress orbiting Jupiter. The final trial? Recreate the Cross effect, a miracle on demand. The test subject, a dying supernova whale on the brink of collapse. The humans meditated, chanted, one even sacrificed his beard. Nothing. Just as they declared failure, a new figure appeared in the observation room, worn denim, boots, faded jacket. He didn't speak. Just poured coffee into a mug, sipped, and pointed once. The whale sang again, then vanished in a beam of golden light. Every system in the fortress shorted. Half the crew passed out. One of the jellyfish melted from joy. The man? Gone. Only a single sentence burned into every screen. Stop trying to be me. Start being better humans. After that, there were no more experiments. Just temples, shrines, songs. One was called The Brew Awakens. Another, Mug of Ages. Earth refused to monetize it. When asked why, the UN issued one sentence: "We don't sell what's freely given." But mug sales skyrocketed anyway, especially ones that said, "Daniel is my co-pilot." And deep in the wheat field, under the blinking stars and the rustle of late wind, old Joe leaned back in a creaking chair. The mug on the porch beside him steamed gently. He didn't sip it, just smiled. The kind of smile you give when you've seen the joke coming a long time ago. The first confirmed conversion during combat happened on the moons of Strix Delta. The Varnathi Marauders, a reptilian mercenary faction known for crucifying star captains with their own bones, were in the middle of glassing a rebel colony when their lead dreadnought suddenly stopped firing, not slowed, not delayed, stopped, dead in space. When the rebels scanned the dreadnought, they found no damage, no malfunction, just a fleet-wide broadcast from the Varnathi command bridge. "We have encountered the brew. We no longer desire blood, only warmth and froth." The rebels assumed it was a trick until the Varnathi landed, carrying what they described as peace offerings. Turns out, they had converted their ammo factories into roasting plants. The first Strix-style espresso was brewed in the barrel of a decommissioned plasma launcher. It tasted like surrender and cinnamon, and it was a hit. Elsewhere in the galaxy, the most feared species in 4 quadrants, the Garzul, held a holy war vote. Their war council was formed of 12 champions. All had murdered at least one planetary government with bare claws. But on the day of their annual blood congress, a mysterious crate arrived in the center chamber. No name, no signal. Inside, 12 mugs. 12 different Earth designs. Don't talk to me until I've had my brew. Hot liquid, high stakes. Jesus took the wheel, I just want coffee. No one touched them, until Kartak the skull grinder picked one up and immediately fell to his knees. Witnesses say he had a vision of Daniel Cross in a robe made of morning fog, holding a thermos, whispering something in perfect Garzul. Kartak immediately declared Daniel the morning warmonger. Now the Garzul only go to war after a pot is brewed. If the brew fails, they take it as a sign from Cross to stay home. Interstellar violence dropped 32%. Coffee sales rose 500%. Causation? Probably. Correlation? Definitely. On the diplomatic front, the Galactic Unity Council was panicking. They had never intended for one human to become the human, especially not one who once asked if he could attend council meetings in pajama pants because robes make me feel culty. But when your former skeptic god figure is now being cited in thousands of ceasefire treaties, you pivot. So the council did what bureaucracies do best. They formed a subcommittee. The Crossian Oversight Accord goals: prevent worship from getting out of hand, monitor the mug manifestations, investigate Old Joe, aka the prophet of the porch. The results? Hilarious failure. First attempt, a stealth surveillance drone disguised as a pigeon. Old Joe threw a biscuit at it. It exploded. Second attempt, a shape-shifting alien disguised as a wandering hitchhiker. Joe gave him directions, then handed him a travel mug. Try to keep it warm. He gets moody if it's cold. The mug fused to the agent's hand. He now leads 3 worship tours a week through Joe's property and weeps when the sunset hits the silo just right. Third attempt. They sent a team of logic elite from the Mind Cloud Ascendants. They debated metaphysics with Joe for 36 hours straight. He never said a word, just smiled, sipped coffee, and fixed a tractor. The Ascendants left with full journals and deep trauma. They now teach philosophy under the new universal discipline, brutality, the unsolvable paradox of Daniel. Back in the stars, the cults were growing bolder, not just peaceful ones. The radical order of the boil claimed that only the boiling point of Daniel's coffee mattered, and began hosting holy temperature trials where believers had to hold scalding mugs until they passed out or were worthy. Yeah, that got messy. Earth had to intervene. The United Federation of Faith and Beverage sent a delegation to the Order's flagship, led by Reverend Jamie Tran, former barista, current interfaith negotiator. She brought decaf. 3 hours later, the cult had disbanded. Turns out, nothing humbles zealotry like watery brown disappointment. And Reverend Tran added another line to the holy text now circulating among alien systems. He made it strong, not to scald us, but to wake us. They called it the Gospel of Grind. Meanwhile, Daniel Cross? Still missing, still silent. Except one message, encoded in gravitational pulses near the event horizon of a quiet black hole in Sector 91D. I am not a god. I'm just a guy who likes quiet mornings, warm mugs, and peace. Stop building statues. Start helping each other. P.S. Try the vanilla roast. It was dismissed as a hoax until the black hole coughed out 12 beans, all still warm. And what about Earth? Well, it didn't change much. Sure, more tourists. A few interstellar pilgrims fainting at Starbucks. One fast food chain rebranding as Holy Grounds. But on farms and in cafes, humans remained human. The ones who could laugh at their own beliefs. The ones who knew stories weren't less true just because they were beautiful. The ones who never expected to be worshipped and quietly hoped they never would be. And in the farmhouse, Joe still sat. Coffee brewed itself now. Sometimes the wind whispered, sometimes the mug laughed. But mostly, things stayed quiet, just the way Daniel liked it. They say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But in the galaxy, it's usually the first step to mass panic, especially when 12 alien civilizations simultaneously declared the creation of synthetic human avatars, artificial prophets, engineered to replicate Daniel Cross's behavior and sacred ambiance. Each project had a name. Each project was a mistake. Project Simucross began on G-Tal Prime. The goal, combine Earth physiology with Galactic AI to replicate Daniel's behavior, voice, and spiritual coffee habits. The result, a 6'2" humanoid with immaculate hair, an eternal 5 o'clock shadow, and a voice like warm caramel dipped in sarcasm. Problem? It never stopped talking. Not philosophically, not cryptically. Number just endless commentary. On mugs, on chairs, on the awkward shape of alien toilets. It called the venerable high matriarch of G-Tal Prime Cupcake Mid-Council. It asked a sentient sand creature if it needed a lint roller. It rewrote sacred texts into sitcom scripts. When they asked it for wisdom, it said, brew strong, sleep rarely, die caffeinated. The project was shut down in less than a week. The robot is now an intergalactic stand-up comic. Some say that's what Daniel would have wanted. Project Echo Brew, run by the Carthet Ascendancy, took a darker turn. They believed Daniel's divinity came from suffering, so they designed suffering into their clone's brain. Panic, loss, existential dread, all coded in. What emerged from their lab was a shaky, haunted-eyed figure in a bathrobe who wandered the halls whispering things like, "The mugs are empty because we are," and "I was born in fire." The creamer lies. It terrified everyone. Echo Brew is now locked in a soundproof chamber beneath Carthet's capital, where it recites poetry to coffee beans and screams when shown tea. They're afraid to turn it off. The worst attempt came from the Zarkali Union. They decided to skip cloning and summon Daniel. No one knows how. They used religious relics, gravitational pulses, caffeine molecules, and probably a Ouija board. What they got was a goat. Just a goat. Floating in space, named Gregory. It chews everything and occasionally emits messages in binary. He's not here, but he's watching. The goat has a fan base now, because of course it does. Amid the chaos, Earth finally spoke. Not through war, not through declarations, through coffee. Specifically, the Earth Global Embassy of Hospitality and Brew, affectionately called the Mug Mission. Stationed on a neutral moon, the Mug Mission welcomed alien pilgrims, skeptics, and tea drinkers alike. Their only rule? No worship, just warmth. Ambassadors wore flannel and served drinks while explaining Earth culture, its complexity, contradictions, and creativity. One day, a Zenthar High Lord asked, "If you are not divine, why do miracles follow your kind?" Ambassador Clarice Nguyen smiled and answered, "Because we don't try to be gods, we just try to be better." That line? It went viral. Aliens painted it on starships, tattooed it on their weird, glowy skin, chanted it during harvest festivals. The phrase became known as the Better Creed, and with it, Earth reclaimed the narrative. But that didn't stop the hardcore believers, especially not the radical sect known as the Order of the Steam. They had one mission: find Daniel Cross. Not worship, not mimic, just find him. They scoured sectors, chased rumors, tracked fluctuations in caffeine signatures, and one day, they got a hit. A remote farming moon, tiny cabin, solar panels, hammock, mug rack, and a man, mid-40s, graying hair, beard, boots, flannel. No aura, no miracles, just a human. They approached carefully, falling to their knees. "Are you him?" they asked. The man looked up from his book, raised an eyebrow, and said, "Depends. You bringing beans or just questions?" They brought beans. He made coffee, and for the next 12 hours, they sat in silence. No prophecies, no visions, just birds, wind, steam rising from mugs. When they left, they told no one what they saw. But a note appeared on the Mug Mission's message board weeks later. Written on a napkin, it said, "He's alive, still brewing, still human. Please stop sending goats." Galactic religion was never the same. Faith remained, but it matured. No more shrines, no more trials. Now, just one practice. Every sentient being who believes in Daniel's legacy must, once per cycle, brew a cup for someone else. They call it the passing steam. The ritual is simple: no prayers, just a warm drink, and one line spoken, "You matter," even if the universe doesn't say it. It's the fastest growing faith in the known galaxy. It has no leaders, no doctrine, just mugs, and kindness, and humans. They're still confused, because to them, Daniel was just Daniel, and maybe that's the point. When the star of Harvax 9 went dark, the galaxy finally panicked. No warning, no flare, just gone. The first theories blamed a quantum implosion, then sabotage, then a higher dimensional predator nicknamed the sip that ends stars. Yeah, they were reaching, but here's what mattered. Harvax 9 powered entire sectors. Without it, hundreds of worlds were dying. And in that chaos, something worse emerged. A fleet, black, silent, no markings. They didn't talk, they didn't demand. They just moved from system to system, draining energy, erasing satellites, and silencing transmissions. Every defense line crumbled, until the ships reached a quiet corner of space, a place no one attacked, because they were scared of what might answer: Earth. By this point, humans had stopped correcting the galactic record. They were tired. Tired of explaining that Daniel Cross was not a prophet, a demigod, or the reincarnation of an ancient coffee deity named Percolus. He was just a guy. A tired, sarcastic, quietly brilliant man who wanted peace and privacy. But when the Black Fleet came, no one turned to Earth's military. They turned to the Mug Mission, and the mission turned to a man who lived off-grid, in a cabin, with solar panels and a hammock. When the request arrived, he didn't speak for a long time. He just poured a cup of coffee, watched the steam. Then he said, "Fine, but I'm not wearing a robe." The final confrontation didn't happen on a battlefield. It happened on a neutral moon, a table, one human, one emissary from the fleet, an AI construct with obsidian skin, pulsing with energy siphoned from dying systems. It spoke without voice. "You are flawed, you are chaotic, you are irrelevant." Daniel took a sip. "You ever try mocha?" The AI flickered. "We are the end of cycles, the burn that clears the ash." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Cool speech. You practice that in front of a mirror, or do you come preloaded with pretentious?" "You joke. Why?" Daniel looked at the stars. "Because if I didn't, I'd scream." Silence. Then the AI leaned forward. "You think you can stop us?" Daniel stood, held out a thermos. The AI scanned it. Inside, liquid heat, sugar, and something older than algorithms. Hope. "You know what this is?" Daniel asked. "A compound of water, oils, and—" "No," Daniel smiled. "It's comfort, community, sanity. It's the reason my species didn't rip itself apart. It's what we shared before battle, after loss, and when the world didn't make sense." He set the thermos down. "You take our stars, our power, our machines, but you can't take that." "Why?" "Because you'll never understand it. You weren't made for warmth." Then Daniel did the unthinkable. He walked around the table, poured 2 mugs, one for himself, one for the enemy, held it out. "We do not drink." Daniel nodded. "Exactly, and that's why you lose." The Black Fleet didn't vanish. It paused, and across the stars people noticed. Their weapons stopped, their engines cooled, and one by one, worlds lit candles. Mugs were passed, stories were told, some to gods, some to ghosts, some to no one, but they were shared, and slowly. The fleet turned around, no declaration, no terms, just retreat. No one knew if Daniel won or if the enemy just didn't want to see what came next, but the galaxy survived because someone offered a cup instead of a bullet. In the aftermath, Daniel vanished again. No robe, no goodbye, just a single note sent to the mug mission. "Be kind, be weird, brew strong." D and Earth, still confusing, still chaotic, still very human. But now, every world had one holiday in common: Steam Day. On that day, every being, no matter their world or form, makes a warm drink for someone else. No speeches, no sermons, just silence, steam, and the memory of the man who never asked to be followed, but walked ahead anyway, not as a god, as a human.